He's a liar, a cheater, a deceiver, heartbreaker. Brian Norman Sr., the Normans, Team Norman, gets at Jaron Boots Ennis, and they expose him for what they believe constant lies in the public, say he don't want to fight anybody. I'm going to break down everything you need to know in this video, so stay tuned. Let go. Now, I just seen an interview with Brian Norman Sr., father trainer of Brian Norman, who has a upcoming fight with Devin Haney. The interview was on Mill City Boxing. Definitely check it out so you guys can hear it verbatim, because I'm going to paraphrase some things that I heard. And in paraphrasing, ultimately, Brian Norman Sr. says that Jaron Boots Ennis is a bad product. Hold on. Because I tell you all the time, a lot of people in this boxing game are emotional. They can't control their emotions. They hear something. They see a Boxing Ego title. They don't even fully watch the video to see if Boxing Ego is cooking or if it makes sense, and they get emotional. If that is you, you might as well turn off from the video right now, because you're not going to understand and get the depth that we talk boxing, right? You're too emotional. So he says Jaron Ennis is not a bad fighter. So some people are going to be like, oh, he's hating. If you were hating, he would say he was a trash fighter. He didn't say that. He said he's not a bad fighter. It's a bad product. He says reason being, he says that Boots gets on the mic and he barely does interviews because he's lying and he won't keep it real with the public, right? So therefore, his team kind of does more of the interviews and he stays away from it for the most part, only occasionally doing interviews because he's not a brilliant interview speaker. And I gotta admit, it is kind of like Devin Haney, right? You see why Devin Haney's dad, Bill Haney, be doing most of the talking, because when Devin Haney gets into the microphone, it's not the same. It's he's not as convincing. He's stuttering and stammering a bit, and you'll find inconsistencies. That's what Brian Norman is saying with Boots Ennis. And I've already told you one of them that is true, that I know for a fact because it happened, and it's something that I personally, I don't just go off of, oh, Brian Norman said this, so it must be true. I'm talking about personal experience. And it's hard to argue when I show y'all receipts. So my receipt for Boots is not always transparent and not always like, saying things that make him look like congruent, right? Here's an example. I have told you guys on my channel for years now, Boots is a big welterweight, and once he gets closer to that 30-year-old mark, right? I don't see him making welterweight anymore because he's too big and he probably has to do too much. I don't have a horse in the race. I don't have anything against the kid. When I look at boxing, I'm looking from a boxing lens, and I'm looking at his size and his off-season pictures, and I know that you're taking several pounds off to make weight. He's a professional, cool. He hasn't missed weight to my knowledge. That's great, but I know it's hard, right? And this is what I said, and if you guys can attest to it and remember me saying these things, that Boots come 30 is going to be hard to make that welterweight. Now look at him. He's 28 years old, and he just announced he's moving up to 154. I got to be the best in the business, and it's not even close. People say, oh, you're hating, Ego. Oh, you're wrong, Ego. But in the end, what I said came true. How could I be hating? How could I be wrong, right? But particularly with Boots, his last fight was Stanionis. I made a video, like I've been making videos about Boots, and it's questioning the weight, basically. Saying, looking at him on fight week, I see a difference. He's going to have to move up soon, right? This is what I was saying. He's looking pretty spent and pretty drained. Keep in mind, two things can be true. You could be weight drained and still perform the next day, especially when you're in your 20s because you're younger, so your body can bounce back. So in none of my content did I ever say Jaron Ennis is going to lose or he's going to be in a tough fight or Stanionis is going to beat him. I'm just talking solely about the weight, to which I was right? Jaron Ennis said post-fight after he beat Stanionis, he said, a lot of you guys listen to these YouTubers and they don't know what they're talking about. So I took that as like a direct shot because I was one of those YouTubers who was saying that he looks a bit drained, right? Post-fight, Boots Ennis said, a lot of you guys listen to these YouTubers and they don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. They were saying I was weight drained and I have struggles to make weight. And he was like, man, I made weight by Tuesday. I was pretty much at weight. I didn't even have to work out no more, right? So he's basically, and here's the thing. You had people, idiots, sending this to me like he proved me wrong. They were like, see, Ego, you don't know what you're talking about. Boots Ennis said he made weight on Tuesday and you were questioning his weight, right? Then immediately after, people want to see him fight Brian Norman in a unification, right? The day before Brian Norman is about to fight in Japan, he announces he's moving up to 154. And then he gives this whole like interviews and spiel about how his doctor told him that he's not optimized and he's not fighting to his full potential at 147 with this weight cut. So he decided he's only at like 30-40% doing this. Now he got to move up to 154. So now your doctor done put this out and now it makes a whole bunch of sense. But when Boxing Ego was saying it, I was just a silly YouTuber who didn't know what he was talking about. Funny how that works. So that is an example of Boots not being consistent and congruent. And there's several others. Like when he beat, I want to say, Karen Chukadasian. And he was like, man, I got to get it was like a sketch kind of performance. He did worse in the rematch than he did in the first fight. And Jaron Ennis said, man, I got to give my body a break. You know, I got to move up to 54, blah, 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 blase, blah. He said this after the Karen Chukadasian fight, the rematch. Go watch it, right? And then Turkey presented him a fight at 54 versus Virgil Ortiz, who's already been at 54 for a couple of fights. And then Turkey, this is not my words, this is Turkey. Turkey said that Boots gave us his word, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he said, we want to stay at 47. So the fight fizzled out. This is before the injury Virgil Ortiz had, or surgery, right? So it looks bad. After your fight and kind of a rocky performance where Chukadasian did better in the rematch, right? You said you're moving up. Then you have an opportunity, a big fight after you move up, and then the person paying is going to overpay you pretty much for it. Then you say you're staying at 47, right? Fast forward to the future. You say you're staying at 47 to unify and become undisputed. You beat Stanionis, look good doing it. Now you're saying your doctor told you that you need to move up to 54 so you could be truly optimized and at your best. So now you announce the day before Brian Norman fought in Japan, you're moving up, as I mentioned, right? You're moving up to 54. And then there's other big names like Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney. They're saying that they were trying to fight you at 147, but Devin Haney said that Boots wanted his team sent back a request to have the fight at 152. Bro, this camp is all over the place. This looks bad. Unless Devin Haney is lying about the 152, which it makes sense. He's like, I ain't fought at 147. Why would I fight you at 152? You see what I'm saying? That don't really make sense. But the point I'm making is, why would you want Devin at 152, but you said you were staying at 147, right? You had an opportunity at 54 after you said in the Chukadasian rematch that you wanted to move up to 54. And then the Virgil Ortiz fight fizzles out because you say you're not ready to move up and you're staying at 47. So Boots, whatever is not clicking, it's a lot of like boom, 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 back and forth, and it's not really adding up. And it's to a point where it's like, who do you want to fight, bro? Like T.O. and Devin, I would favor Boots to win those fights at 147. So you stayed long enough to fight David Avocado and Chukazian and Stanionis, and now you have these big opportunities. Now suddenly, after you said that you made weight easy in the Stanionis fight, now suddenly you can't make welterweight anymore. So it's kind of hard to go against what I'm saying or what Brian Norman is saying regarding Boots. He's kind of all over the place, right? 1 minute he says, I got to move up. Then the opportunity to move up happens with Virgil Ortiz. He said, I got to stay at 47. Then he stays at 47, does what he says in terms of trying to unify, but he also said he wanted to stay to become undisputed. You can fight Brian Norman for undisputed or at least a unification to get closer to undisputed. And then he says, I'm moving up the day before Brian Norman successfully defends his title, right? And has a crazy knockout of the year performance. And then Devin Haney, you want him at 52, but you said you made 47 easy. So it's like, this is too all over the place. And a man has to be congruent with what he says, point blank, period. I truly believe that. I've always stated that. You can't find these inconsistencies and gaps in boxing ego conversations. And I got 17,000 videos plus on my page. But what I mean, and I say it, and that's the way it goes. It's not like this flip-flopping. But Jaron Boots Ennis, his intentions are very muddied and unclear. Like, what do you want? Do you want to stay at 47 and be undisputed, or do you want to move to 54, right? How are you going to respond to YouTubers like me talking about I make weight easy, but then you can't stay for one or two fights with Devin Haney and T.O., fights that I would have you winning at 47. Now you just absolutely can't make weight anymore. So, and then Virgil Ortiz said they were trying to revisit the Boots fight, but Virgil Ortiz's team says Boots wants a tune-up first. So I don't know. He has a ton of fights, but since he got with Eddie Hearn, it is the direction and the path is looking very, very unclear. Turkey's throwing you on the bus. Devin Haney, T.O. saying I was trying to fight him. And again, this is not like a Boots slander video. I'm just being real. I like Boots, but I also like the truth. And you're missing out on opportunities for whatever reason, and your intentions are unclear. Live streaming can be tough, which is why I use StreamYard. Click the link in the description for StreamYard, which is an awesome tool that enables you to set up your stream with ease of use. Get great results with live streaming. It's what I use. Stream to social media with ease with StreamYard. Live streaming is here to stay. Engage with your audience using StreamYard. Great way to reach out to your audience and connect. So you need a tool that can do that.